Okay, I think we are going to go ahead and get started. So good evening and welcome to this Zoom webinar forum with the candidates for City of Bremerton Mayor. This forum is sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Kitsap County. My name is Linda Streisguth and I will be the moderator for tonight's event. The League of Women Voters is proud to be a nonpartisan organization, neither supporting or opposing candidates or political parties. The League envisions a democracy where every person has the desire, the right, the knowledge, and the confidence to participate. Questions have been submitted to the League by voters through our website. We've consolidated those into the questions I'll ask our candidates this evening. The questions cover a range of topics and issues pertinent to the City of Bremerton. Our candidates for City of Bremerton Mayor include Greg Wheeler and William Broughton, and I hope I can call you Bill this evening. Thank you to both of our candidates for offering your skills and talents in service to our city. You deserve our deep respect, and we ask that during this forum, you maintain civility with one another. During tonight's format, each candidate will be given 90 seconds to make an opening statement. We will go in the order your name appears in the ballot. Then I'll begin the questions. Each of you in rotating order will have 60 seconds to respond. If you've answered a question and have time remaining, you may speak about a previous question or clarify a statement if you like. And at the end of the forum, each candidate will again have 90 seconds to make a closing statement. If you run out of time, you'll get to finish your sentence, but our timekeeper will maintain that electronic clock. So I do ask that you keep an eye on that. It's now time to begin our opening statements. 90 seconds, please. And we'll begin with Mayor Wheeler.
All right, well, thank you, Linda, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. So I am Bremerton Mayor Greg Wheeler, and just a little background to get those of you who don't know me up to speed on that is I'm from Bremerton and was raised in East Bremerton, attended public schools, did enter the United States Navy and served, came back home, started and completed a career at Puget Sound Naval Shipyard. It was 34 years total. I retired 6 years ago from that. I've served on the city council for 8 years. I was elected by my peers 3 times. I am in my first term as mayor, and it has been an honor to serve as your mayor. For those out in the audience, if you're in Bremerton, there's a good chance I knocked on your door. And we had a chance to chat, and you were able to share your dreams, your vision for what our city looks like. And I take those thoughts very seriously. In my first term, and if you'll go to my website, you can look at what I've accomplished. There's over 20 programs and initiatives that I've brought forward, ranging from affordable housing to environmental cleanups, to safer streets and sidewalks. I encourage you to check out my website. So I'm Greg Wheeler, and I look forward to our forum tonight.
Thank you. And Mr. Broughton, 90 seconds, please.
Yes, thank you, Linda, and thanks to the League of Women Voters for putting this on. I appreciate it. So I was city attorney in Bremerton back in the 1980s. I was there for 5 years. I was 31 years old when I got hired, and you know, it was a great job. I really enjoyed my public service. I have 4 kids, so I had to go out and make some money. So I've been in private practice ever since. But now I'm coming back to Bremerton because I'm not happy with what's going on or what's not happening in Bremerton, and I feel like I can make a difference. You know, my programs include fixing our streets and sidewalks, stop stealing from our water and sewer utilities, revitalizing the downtown, and bringing public fiber to our communities. And I have specifics about those plans. I would point out that our incumbent mayor 4 years ago promised affordable housing, and there hasn't been a single unit of affordable housing built in the last 4 years. He promised to stop the hospital from leaving or bring another hospital into Bremerton 4 years ago. That hasn't happened. He promised to reduce or eliminate the B&O tax. That hasn't happened. He promised to bring businesses to Bremerton, and instead of bringing businesses, despite his claims of bringing Amazon, that was a Port of Bremerton. And you know, the Viking fence debacle shows that what the city right now is doing is they're pushing businesses away from Bremerton. So, you know, I want common sense regulations. I want common sense government. I want a welcoming environment for businesses. Public safety is my priority.
Thank you, candidates. And now we'll start our questions. As a reminder, each of you will have 60 seconds to respond. And our first question begins with Mr. Broughton. Please share with us your top priorities or issues that you'd like to address if elected, and why you believe they are important for Bremerton.
Yes, thank you, Linda. Well, my first priority is to fix our streets and sidewalks. I mean, our streets and sidewalks are in a horrible state of disrepair. They're unsafe. You know, they're not bicycle friendly. They're not handicap friendly. They're just in terrible condition. And, you know, that's a matter of priorities. I'll make fixing our streets and sidewalks a #1 priority when I'm mayor. The second thing I'll do is bring public fiber internet to Bremerton. You know, right now we have Comcast basically with a monopoly on internet service in the city. I'm going to deploy public fiber throughout our communities, which will give us high-speed, low-cost public fiber alternatives to Comcast. You know, I'm going to stop the steal of money from our water and sewer utilities that punishes our lowest income citizens and our seniors by artificially making water and sewer more expensive. And finally, I've got a plan to redevelop our downtown to get rid of our old empty buildings and bring new, fresh residences and businesses into the city.
Thank you, Mayor Wheeler.
Okay, thank you, Linda. So affordable housing will be my top priority. It has been a high priority. Down payment assistance, rental assistance, and a weatherization program have all created opportunities for a house to be affordable. We have streamlined our permitting process, which is reflected in a record number of development in our city. Supply must exceed demand for us to get a handle on affordability. We've updated our codes, we've updated our zoning. We now have, and it's some of the most progressive in the Puget Sound region. You can have ADUs up to 2 in your backyard. There's cottage zoning coming. How the opioid crisis and untreated mental illness and are unsheltered, that's another priority. So I have developed partnerships to treat that. We have a mobile opioid addiction treatment clinic. I have permanent supportive housing, job creation. Amazon's an example. I can go into detail why I was able to keep Amazon in the city when they came here.
Thank you. Our next question will begin with Mayor Wheeler.
Okay.
And it relates to your answer in the first question.
Yes.
How would you budget for the priorities you just articulated or establish funding for them? And the second part of the question is, are there any specific programs or budget line items that you would decrease support for in order to fund your priorities?
You know, right now, with the revenue trend is on an upward incline. So we'll exceed 11 million this year per projection sales tax. The key is, as we promote new housing and new economy, we have to carve out money from this. So I seeded the accounts with $100,000 to get them started, weatherization and with the rental assistance. And the codes and zoning changes, you've seen what's going on with that. So the increases will keep coming. We have to make it a priority. You have to set that aside in advance. We also have a capital budget that we use to fund weatherization. That was with the help of the city council. So that's an easy one. And then again, working with the state legislature with the sales tax rebate that we get to help fund rental assistance has been very handy. The permanent supportive housing project and other projects that I'm working on, those are other opportunities for affordable housing for some of our most vulnerable.
Thank you. And Mr. Broughton?
Yes.
Do you need me to repeat the question?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay. How would you budget for the priorities you articulated a moment ago and or establish funding for them? Are there any specific programs or budget line items that would be decreased to support your priorities?
Well, Linda, that's a good question. The first thing I'll do is I will come to the city with a new concept in budgeting called zero-based budgeting. And you know what happens in government budgeting now, and what happened when I was in Bremerton, was the department heads would come in and they'd say, well, here's what we got last year and here's what we want this year. That's not the way it's going to work when I'm mayor. I'm going to require every department to start at zero and justify every dollar they spend. You know, there's a lot of money being wasted in the city right now. For example, we provide a car for the mayor, which makes no sense, but that's just one example. There are millions of dollars that I've found in the budget that are being wasted that could be better spent. We can use technology to bring efficiencies to the city. That's going to be really important. And I'm going to make priorities of the things that I've decided are my priorities. So, you know, you start with your priorities and then you see what's left after you fund the things that are most important: fire, police, streets, and you go from there.
Thank you. Our next question will begin with you, Mr. Broughton. What is your opinion of our healthcare system on the Kitsap Peninsula? And in your role as an advocate for the people of Bremerton, what specifically will you do to ensure access to comprehensive, affordable healthcare?
Well, thank you. As I indicated in my opening statement, this is something that Mayor Wheeler promised us 4 years ago. He said something to the effect of, I will use the full force of the mayor's office to make sure we have a hospital in Bremerton. Well, that didn't happen. And to compare what he hasn't done with what I will do, I'm going to go to our legislators and tell them that we need to abolish this thing called a certificate of need. Because what's happened in the last 4 years under our local leadership is not only has CHI Franciscan created a non-secular monopoly on healthcare in this county, but they've gobbled up all the capacity. They've got all the beds. So as long as a certificate of need system exists, we will not be able to have a hospital in Bremerton. Half the states in this country have abolished this archaic notion of a certificate of need. So I will go to our local legislators, the Attorney General and the Governor's office to repeal the certificate of need so that we can have the opportunity to bring a competing healthcare system into this county.
Mayor Wheeler?
Okay, so the first thing to do is to continue working with our CHI to ensure that prompt and urgent care and that primary residency program is stood up on Kitsap Way. The second one is we do need alternative choices, and it does not have to be a hospital, a full-scale hospital like CHI. I am working with legislators right now. I have been in discussions. We are looking at different options of what a new hospital coming here might look like. It doesn't necessarily mean a complete revoke of a significant need. It is a revamping of it. It is complex, obviously, and it's not something that can be done overnight, but we can start to move the needle on this. The main thing that we need to ensure is CHI keeps their promise that we will have an urgent prompt care or an emergency room in our city of Bremerton. And so that was my commitment to the citizens of Bremerton, that we would have that coverage in our city, and I'll keep working on it.
Thank you. Our next question will begin with Mayor Wheeler. With the hospital move to Silverdale, it seems likely that many associated businesses will move away from the area as well. Would you consider forming a hospital district with Kitsap County to better serve Bremerton? And if so, why or why not?
You know, that's right now, the hospital district option that I've been researching is actually a taxation plan for our citizens. I do not believe that that's the right choice for our city right now. If it was a partnership with the county and it didn't place a burden on our citizens to develop a district, of course I would be open to that. And the legislators I will be working with to create options for our city have all endorsed me in this campaign. So right now, let's review our options. Let's understand the certificate of need before we even talk about how we get rid of it. Let's understand what a hospital district looks like, and then let's present the best option to our citizens. Again, we need to make sure that we are adequately covered and maintain the coverage that CHI promised to us. They promised us an emergency room or a prompt urgent care. I'm going to help, and I'm going to make sure, as Mayor of Bremerton, they fulfill that promise. You can rest assured on that.
Thank you. Mr. Broughton?
Well, the problem I have with that is we've had 4 years. We've heard this 4 years ago, and nothing's happened in 4 years. I mean, you know, there have been 2 legislative sessions in the last 4 years where you could have introduced legislation to eliminate a certificate of need. And that's what needs to happen. I will not support a hospital district. That's taxpayer dollars that are used to support a hospital. If we can get rid of a certificate of need, we've got other providers that can come in and compete. You know, we've got Tacoma General, we've got hospitals in Seattle. We can put a small facility in Bremerton that those systems can use. We can transition people out of those to other hospitals. People in Bremerton need a choice. They don't have a choice now. You know, our medical care in Kitsap County has almost doubled in the last 4 years. So telling us now, Greg, that you're going to do something you told us 4 years ago just doesn't ring true to me, and I don't think it's going to happen.
Our next question will begin with Mr. Broughton. How would you mitigate the impacts referred to in question 4, meaning that the hospital move to Silverdale and associated businesses potentially moving? How would you mitigate that to Bremerton's economy and employment? Mitigate the impacts of that to Bremerton's economy and employment?
Well, we do have an opportunity with the hospital leaving. You know, unfortunately, what's happened since Bremerton knew the hospital was going to leave is they put together a sub-area plan for the hospital district that was put together without the assistance of any financiers or developers or builders or business people. You know, this is kind of planner, pie in the sky sort of sub-area planning that doesn't work. So what's going to happen if we don't involve the people that are actually going to invest the money and do the work is the hospital district is going to end up like downtown. We're going to have a lot of empty buildings. It's going to be blighted, and we can do better than that. You know, Kevin Walthall had a great idea for redeveloping the hospital district where you put in dense residential, you could create a community village, you have a shuttle to the downtown, but you can't do that with just planning. You've got to do a market study, you've got to involve the private sector.
Thank you. Mayor Wheeler, same question.
Okay, so when I first took office, within 2 weeks, I was down in Olympia and I did bring home funding to fund recreation or revisioning of the entire hospital district. And so it was, and that did take that took market forces into account. And there was interviews with different stakeholders. And so I'm confident that this comprehensive plan will develop and will show the same results as the rest of our city in the way we planned for it, because we are experiencing record number of permits throughout our city. We are developing housing by the thousands, and we are redeveloping Wheaton Way as we speak, one building at a time. I'm confident that we are on the right track with that district. It's not a matter of who will come in, or it's not or if, but who. There's so many opportunities. It's a beautiful view property. We have the infrastructure. We have a park system. We will have our choice of folks and employers that will want to move in there.
Thank you. You both referred to what is known as the East Side Village sub-area plan. And for our audience, that was adopted last fall. I want to ask a little bit more specifically, and we begin this question with Mayor Wheeler. How will you help ensure that this area remains a vibrant employment and residential area in using that plan or improving upon that plan?
Right. Well, it's been zoned that way. So we have commercial opportunities in that area. We put ahead and accomplished a planned action environmental impact statement. That saves developers, that saves them thousands of dollars, future developers and investors. That's time, money, and assurance that we put into this project up front. So there are people that are already interested in this area. That's one of the biggest things you can offer is time, money, and assurance. And we've taken care of this up front. You know, right now there's some flexibility in this area, so we can have flexibility in our zoning, where if somebody is a light manufacturer and they can prove minimal to zero impact, then there's a place for them here. And obviously, new commercial development has to fit with a residential component. We do want more housing up there, and we would want to see some job creation at the same time.
Thank you. Mr. Broughton, same question.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's interesting, Greg, because when I looked at that sub-area plan, there were two developers that were listed, Mark Goldberg and Rick Cadwell. And I called Rick Cadwell after I read the plan because the plan is not workable from a financial point of view. And I asked Rick, I said, Rick, what involvement did you have in this? He said, they sent me a questionnaire. They never talked to me. They never interviewed me. They never had me come to a meeting. So, you know, we're doing it backwards. We've been doing it backwards for a long time. You know, you start with a market study. You figure out what makes economic sense. You know, for too long now, Bremerton has tried to dictate using the heavy hand of government to tell people what belongs in a particular place, what works financially. And we've seen the result of that. You know, rents have skyrocketed. We don't have any middle housing. We don't have multifamily housing, which is a key to affordable housing. You know, I don't know when the city's going to learn that you have to start with the private sector.
Thank you. And our next question will begin with Mr. Broughton. What are your thoughts about the city's center sub-area plan? And I'd like you to please share your ideas for how to support or improve that existing plan.
Well, thank you. That plan was done by Mayor Bozeman, who has endorsed me in this campaign along with Mayor Lent. You know, that's a good sub-area plan, the downtown plan. You know, what's missing is there's no parking downtown and there's no plan to build more high-tech city garage structures. So the zoning now is all tied to parking requirements, which makes it very difficult to develop anything. So that's one thing that needs to be changed, at least in the zoning code. And the city needs to build more parking structures and get rid of some of these surface lots. You know, they pay for themselves, as we've proven when we built the first garage back in the late 1970s. So what my plan for downtown redevelopment is, I'm going to do a master plan and I'm going to go to the property owners and I'm going to say, look, you either sign up for this plan, this master plan, which involves really more residential, more affordable residential housing downtown, or, you know, you need to go somewhere else because, you know, the time has come to redevelop downtown.
Thank you. Mayor Wheeler, same question.
Just before I start, did you mean the downtown sub-area plan?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
the center, I think it's labeled center, Bremerton Center sub-area plan. Yeah.
Well, sounds good. So, you know, right now parking, and I'm working on a parking plan right now. I heard something that sounded pretty heavy-handed from government, which is to go and force and mandate private property owners to do something. You know, right now I brought the opportunity zone into the city and I've already seen results from that. And a classic example is the new Quincy or the Marina Square downtown. I'm also investing in Quincy Square, working with a group of stakeholders. These are the incentives to come downtown, establish business, and to get something done. I have a workforce now that we are telecommuting, and so we're freeing up parking, a lot of parking. I have a survey out downtown right now to all the business owners. I want to hear their needs. How many folks use public transit? How many folks, how far would you walk to your job? That will give me the data to work with them, and of course with the Navy, because they're a stakeholder and a partner downtown also, to create alternative plans.
Thank you. Our next question will begin with Mayor Wheeler. Some citizens believe the city presents obstacles, high costs, complicated permitting, lack of available space, and a slow bureaucratic process, especially to small businesses. What ideas do you have to support entrepreneurs and assist small businesses in Bremerton?
Well, I would say that based on our permit activity, we are doing quite well. The ways we can do better are what we've done and what I did in my first term. You accomplish lean programs. You improve your permit process, which I did. You realign your organization. You invest in technology. You can share plans. You can sign up for things online. You know, it's basically we've automated the entire system. Some of the things we can do are the coaching. I brought in Small Business Development Center expert from Western Washington University. That is available to every entrepreneur in the city. And then education is the key. So when you go in, you have a plan, you bring it to the city, we can work with you, but also you are prepared going in with that. You have the great idea and you have the work ethic. We can help you navigate through the permit process. And so those are just a number of things that we're doing right now. We will expand on, and I expect it to be the same. I expect demand to be high.
Thank you. And Mr. Broughton.
Yeah, well, I'm a consumer, Greg, of your permitting system, and I can tell you right now that there are a lot of rules that don't make any sense. I mean, I did a 38 lot subdivision here in Bremerton. I'll never do another one. You know, you talk about affordable housing. I've got street lights that I was required to buy and install and give to the city. I've got sidewalks to nowhere, sewer lines to nowhere. You know, I'll bring up the Viking fence situation again. We have a business that tried to come to Bremerton, the Parker Lumber Building. And, you know, instead of a carrot and welcoming, they were told they had to build a $100,000 wall around a lumber yard that's been there for almost 70 years. You know, that's not removing obstacles, that's creating obstacles. In fact, under your administration, just recently, there was a new boundary line adjustment ordinance passed, which you weren't even aware had happened, which is just another obstacle to people trying to develop their property.
Our next question will begin with Mr. Broughton. And we spoke about parking a moment ago, but this question from our audience states, the lack of day-long parking in downtown, especially for employees, is one of the most often cited reasons for businesses struggling to survive. What will you do to make more parking available downtown for shoppers, businesses, and employees, and especially for those day-long parking needs?
Well, I tell you what I won't do. I won't do another study. I mean, you know, Greg's talking about $750,000 he got from the federal government to do another parking study. They've been doing parking studies in Bremerton for 40 years. I mean, there's probably 10 feet high stack of parking studies that have been done. What I'll do is I will build parking. You know, we've got all this surface parking downtown, and we can build garages. They make sense. We can build high-tech garages where you can use your cell phone to reserve a spot. You know, you can use technology to make those parking stalls available and affordable to people. And, you know, we've got the best opportunity right now to finance public projects like this because we got very low municipal interest rates. So what I will do is I will build parking downtown. We've needed it for a long time. And, you know, a study doesn't do anything for us. It just wastes money. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to build some parking garages.
Mayor Wheeler?
So, you know, taking downtown valuable real estate that should be commercial and residential and turning it into parking garages, it almost seems counterproductive to the activity we want down there. There is the study with the Navy, though, will probably produce a parking garage, but it doesn't necessarily have to be downtown. And it could be strategically located away from the center of town, along with other park and rides with shuttle services that will take people from different parts of the city to the downtown or to the work in the shipyard. So I mentioned earlier the parking study with the Navy, but I also mentioned right now a survey going out. I have virtually turned the workforce into to have the ability to work from home. I'm freeing up 30 or 40 spots with telecommuting. Once we've got this hammered out and we've got this nailed down, I'm going to have spots down there. I want the employees of the small business to have a place to go.
Thank you. Our next question begins with Mayor Wheeler.
Yes.
This past year, commuters who used the Washington State Ferry Bremerton routes experienced boat shortages and impacts to service. Currently, there are no boats available to get people to work on the weekend by 7 a.m. and schedule limitations affect those who work 12-hour shifts.
Yes.
What will you do to advocate for improvements and address equity with other ferry routes?
I will do what I've been doing. Every time we have a work stoppage like this or a run cancellation, I email the governor's office and the Washington State Department of Ferries. And I also email all of our legislators. That, and I mentioned it today, and I've mentioned it multiple times in public forums among our region. That needs to be a high priority next legislative session. We'll put our lobbyists on it, set the groundwork for funding to clean this up. While the ferries are down, you'll notice that Kitsap Transit was able to fill in some routes with fast ferries. That was me working with the executive director after hours and on weekends to ensure we kept this going while a underfunded state system is crumbling. So this is a high priority. I've taken it on. We're going to get this to the top or near the top of the legislative priorities. And this year it's just positioning. So there'll be no funding discussed this year, but the funding will come in the next session.
Mr. Broughton, same question.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad you asked it because 4 years ago, one of the promises that Greg Wheeler made when he ran was he was going to improve the ferry system and he was going to get bus service back for riders on Sundays. Well, there's no service for bus riders on Sundays 4 years later, and our ferry system's gone from bad to worse. You know, this Bremerton ferry system's been the stepchild of the ferry system for too long. And, you know, we've gone to one ferry. What have we heard from the mayor's office? I haven't heard anything. I haven't heard any television articles about it. I haven't heard anything from our legislators about it. I haven't heard from the governor about it. You know, I know people are trying to get to work in Seattle, and not only do we not have a decent ferry system to begin with, now we've only got one boat. Why is Bremerton always the one that suffers when there's a cutback in the ferry system? Why does Bainbridge Island get Cadillac service and we get Volkswagen service? You know, there needs to be a legislative fix, and that's what I'm going to do.
Our next question begins with Mr. Broughton. Bremerton is home to many lower income people that are struggling in this competitive real estate market to find affordable places to live. With rentals making up almost 60% of our local market, what are you doing or planning to do to assure that renters have affordable basic housing options?
Yeah, it's interesting when I listen to the mayor talk about affordable housing like he did 4 years ago. You know, you can hardly find a place to live in Bremerton now that costs less than $2,000 a month. And I've gone into some of the places they're trying to rent for $1,500 a month, and they're run down, filthy. I mean, it's terrible. You know, affordable housing really, as I indicated before, it's a carrot and stick approach. What we need to do is we need to use tax incentives and developer incentives and require developers that build to set aside units for low income housing. We also need more density. Like I said earlier, you know, the missing middle in zoning has been a problem in Bremerton and continues to be a problem in Bremerton. Greg's had 4 years to fix it. You don't just go from super dense residential neighborhoods to single family residential. There's got to be more multifamily. And, you know, until we address the real problem and the stupid regulations, I mean, fire sprinklers for every house in Bremerton, that's ridiculous.
Mayor Wheeler, same question.
Could you repeat the question again, Linda?
Yes, I can. Bremerton is home to many low-income people that are struggling in this competitive real estate market to find affordable places to live. With rentals making up almost 60% of our local market, what are you doing or planning to do to assure that renters have affordable, basic housing options?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I touched on it earlier as at the top of my priority list. You know, infill development is a key. Supply must exceed demand. My record speaks for itself with the improvements I've made in the permitting processes. We do have a record number of housing units going into the city. I'll say it again, a record number of permit and activity with housing units in the city. Throughout my first 4 years, in my first year, developed a rental assistance program and weatherization program. Defined affordable housing as making enough money or having enough money to be able to keep your shelter and maintain other important budget line items in a household budget. Those projects have kept hundreds of people in their homes. We need more of it. And so I'm also working with the state, and you'll see more types of permanent supportive housing to help our most vulnerable citizens. And again, it all comes together. We'll keep being innovative. We're going to keep pushing out more housing units.
Thank you. Our next question, we'll start with Mayor Wheeler. How can the city address homelessness in a way that will alleviate the problem rather than responding as emergency situations arise on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, a couple of the things I started, it's a mobile opioid addiction clinic, treatment and just general primary health care. Bremerton Fire Department working with Peninsula Community Health Services, we can help people right where they live. So this is important. Pendleton Place, that I had a big part. In fact, if I had not intervened, introduced and located and identified that area up there, introduced them to the investors, Kitsap Mental Health, Bremerton Housing Authority, we would not be here today. And also just looking at an area, that was the first permanent supportive housing project in Kitsap County. It's easy to say we should do it. I got it done. And so just working with the Salvation Army for shelters, providing options, the Stand By Me program that I support, I bring in money for. That's a crisis triage there where you get people housing, vocational training, get their healthcare taken care of. All of those help.
Thank you. Mr. Broughton?
Well, it's a very good question. You know, when I'm knocking on doors and talking to constituents, you know, what they're telling me is they say, you know, it looks like Bremerton's turning into Seattle. And, you know, there's a lot of truth to that. You know, when I talk to the firemen and policemen, you know, they tell me, they say, Bill, we know who these people are. We know what their issues are. Nobody's talking to us. So the first thing I'm going to do is make sure that I involve our first responders in coming up with solutions. But there needs to be a housing first solution, and it's got to be data driven. So we've got to better understand where these people are coming from, what kind of housing they need, what kind of services they need. And, you know, frankly, I haven't seen it, but I'm told by the police that there's a directive from the mayor and the police chief not to enforce property crimes against the homeless people that are committing crimes. Now, I'm a law and order guy. I'm a former city attorney. And, you know, I want to help these people, but they can't be allowed to break into cars and steal things and commit property crimes. That's unacceptable.
Thank you. Our next question will begin with Mr. Broughton. What have you been doing to move race equity forward in Bremerton? And do you have an equity action plan that will engage the community?
Well, I haven't been in a position to do it. I can tell you what's not happening now. You know, there's been no effort by the city to recruit and be inclusive in our hiring practices. I mean, the Bremerton workforce is lily white. You know, the mayor, when he wants to hire somebody, he hires an old white guy that's already working there. And, you know, that's directly violative of the affirmative action and equal opportunity principles of Bremerton. You know, we need to go out and recruit. I've got a program I call the Brightest and the Best. What we're going to do when I'm mayor is we're going to go out to college campuses. We're going to go to the NAACP. We're going to recruit people to apply for jobs. And that's what you have to do. frankly, I don't understand. The one thing Greg has done, he fired the police chief who we brought in from outside, who was probably the most progressive, most effective fire chief we've had in a long time in Bremerton. Greg wouldn't even tell us why he fired the chief. That's not acceptable either.
Mayor Wheeler.
Yeah, so I started, it took a little bit to get it going, but a workforce equity and inclusion plan. And there's a lot that goes into it. And you can come to my website to learn more. But basically, and with implicit bias training, and we're already starting to see results. We're starting to see an increase in diversity. All the things that my opponent mentioned, we're already out there. We've expanded our reach into different areas tenfold over what we used to do. It's a comprehensive policy. We've updated our EEO policies, my hiring practices, and everybody coming into the city, no matter what race or gender or how you identify yourself, wants the same opportunity. They want to be able to work themselves up to the top. They want to show that they want to prove their worth. They want to prove their loyalty, gain institutional knowledge, and have the chance to be promoted from within. With my program and my policies, I am upwardly promoting folks as we speak.
Thank you. Our next question, we'll start with Mayor Wheeler. Bremerton is currently divided among 3 state legislative districts and under consideration for new boundaries, which may place the city within a single district. What are your thoughts on redistricting and its impacts to the voters in Bremerton?
I've had a couple different opinions on that. Right now, I'm bringing home funding using the 9 legislators to fund projects like parks that benefit all of our citizens. And so I understand where maybe being one district, you might feel like you have more say over a particular legislator if you have a voting block. But in reality, I'm working with all of them. My North End legislators who've all supported me. The South End, right now we are working together and we are bringing progressive change, infrastructure. Over $20 million in capital projects will occur in the city next year. So I'll just close by saying if property crimes are being ignored, I'd encourage anybody in the city to go look at the statistics of what we're doing. And also just please realize the jail isn't accepting people under COVID at this time.
Thank you. Mr. Broughton.
Well, I can give you a pretty short answer to that question. I think it was terrible the way Bremerton got split into a number of different legislative districts. Bremerton lost a significant amount of legislative clout when that happened, which it used to have. I applaud the Redistricting Commission's work so far, because what they're talking about doing is having one legislative district that includes the entire city of Bremerton. We've got splintered districts now, so Bremerton really has little say and electoral say in what happens with elections. And I applaud the work of this Redistricting Commission, and I hope to see a day soon when Bremerton has its own legislator in Bremerton.
Thank you. The next question will be addressed to begin with Mr. Broughton. If elected, how would you work with area tribes? And how would your understanding of tribal sovereignty impact your work?
Well, that's a good question. I've spent my career representing municipal governments and sometimes opposing municipal governments when the hand of government got a little heavy. But I have a good relationship with the tribes. A lot of my clients work with the tribes. My public utility district client who I've represented for over 20 years. We have a good working relationship with them because we recognize they're a sovereign nation. We understand what their concerns are, and we talk to them. We've got an interlocal agreement with them where we meet on a quarterly basis to talk about areas of mutual concern, primarily water rights concerns. So, they're an important player in Bremerton, and I want to continue to work with them because I think there's a lot they can bring to the city.
Thank you. And Mayor Wheeler.
Yeah, I will continue to do what we do. Right now, we have 2 major culvert projects, repair projects going in the city. Our priorities align with the tribe's priorities. We do take care of our shoreline. A lot of the projects we do directly affect how much stormwater, runoff moves into the sound with pollutants in it. All the regulations that my opponent brings up that are inhibiting development are actually the regulations that help control stormwater runoff. They help maintain critical vegetation near shorelines for habitat. These are the things that come into play where you have to meld development regulations with our environment. And so if you'll take a look around, I don't know if my opponent knows this, but we have to file for a permit every year to discharge stormwater into the Puget Sound, and we pass every year.
Thank you. And the next question will be addressed first to Mayor Wheeler. When did you last vote in the city of Bremerton?
In the last election.
And Mr. Broughton?
Well, I took a detour to Poulsbo and I'm back. So I voted here for a number of years, but I didn't vote here last year.
Well, thank you both. Those were short answers to our last question that we had this evening. And that does conclude the question portion of our forum. So I want to thank both of our candidates for participating this evening. And now it's time for closing statements. Each of you, again, will have 90 seconds for those closing statements, and we'll begin with Mr. Broughton.
Yes, thank you. You know what you'll see when I'm mayor is you're going to see a lot less plans and a lot more action. I've spent my career fighting for my clients and my constituents. When I was city attorney in Bremerton, I fought effectively to get drunk drivers off the road. I fought effectively for women who were getting beaten by their boyfriends or spouses with a domestic violence program. I fought the heavy hand of government when they tried to stop live music at Brother Don's on Kitsap Way. I think government suffers from analysis paralysis. And I think we elect people who've never run a lemonade stand, much less a business. And so what you're going to see with my leadership is I'm going to fight, and I know what issues are worth fighting for. And the things we've talked about today are important issues to fight for, whether it's a hospital or it's the ferry system, or it's real measures to create affordable housing. It's public fiber internet for our children so they want to learn on their cell phones. Stopping the steal of money out of water and sewer utilities. I tell you what, the first thing I'm going to do is on your water and sewer bill, you're going to see that 30% tax that our seniors and low income people are having to pay that goes to other social service programs. That's not fair and it's not right. And yeah, I have a plan for revitalizing the downtown. It may be heavy handed in some people's view, but these property owners need to get moving.
Thank you. And Mayor Wheeler?
Well, thank you, Linda. And it's been an honor to serve the city of Bremerton. It's the best job I've ever had. And, day in and day out, my biggest reward is when an average citizen, just somebody just trying to get by, work, raise a family, or just take care of their household needs, thanks me for the things that I do every day. It's an honor and a privilege. I come from Bremerton. It's in my heart, in my soul. The future of this city is very dear to me and how it's run. I'm up here today to make sure that I communicate with all of you. Please go to my website, www.reelectgregwheeler.com. You'll see a number of community supporters. You'll see elected leaders in our region. You'll see at least 20 initiatives that will actually spark more conversation and ideas, which will further your research. And you'll find I am working on a lot of things. I won't give you phony promises. I've been tried and tested through some of the most difficult times that our city's ever seen. And I have had to make those tough decisions as your mayor, but I will always give it to you straight. And so again, it's been an honor and it's a privilege to serve as your mayor. I ask for your vote again come November 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you to both of our candidates. Voters, hopefully this forum has helped you choose a candidate. Ballots for the November 2nd general election will be mailed out soon, and the league is encouraging voters to return those ballots early. I also want to thank BCAT, Bremerton Kitsap Access Television. And thanks to them, the league's forums are recorded and links to the videos will soon be on the league's website at www.lwv-kitsap.org and available at YouTube. Bremerton Kitsap Access Television will also broadcast on Comcast Channel 12 and Wave Broadband Channel 3. So check your local listings for an upcoming schedule to review this forum. Please encourage others to listen in to the forum and most especially to vote. We would also like to thank Kitsap Regional Library for helping to publicize our general election forums. My thanks to our candidates for participating in our forum this evening. And thank you to each of our audience members for listening and for providing thoughtful questions. Please have a safe and pleasant evening. Good night.
Thank you. Thank you, Linda. Nice to
My
see you.
pleasure.